And now, it's Boomer Life. Lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bell.
And welcome to Boomer Life on CIL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. And today on the show, we're going to be focusing on the many positive living options available to seniors in British Columbia. So we've brought together a panel of experts who make it their job to see that seniors in this province feel empowered and educated about the options that are available to them that could dramatically improve their quality of life. So joining us in the studio today from the BC Seniors Living Association, which I will refer to on occasion as the BCSLA, we have all the brass in studio today. Executive Director Marlene Williams is here. Welcome.
Glad to be back.
Carol Holmes has joined us today. She is the BCSLA president and the CEO of Insight Housing, Hospitality and Health Services. So Carol, welcome to you.
Thank you.
And we also have Tony Baina, the vice president with BC Seniors Living Association. Thanks for being here, Tony.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So I want to say welcome to all, and we want to go around the table. And please, I invite you to share a little bit about yourselves. I could read your bios, but I think it's always more informative and more personal coming from you. So Marlene, what can you tell us about yourself?
Well, I've been the executive director of BCSLA for the last 8 years. My background before BCSLA was in the hospitality tourism industry, and I was in that industry for 20 years almost. And before that, I worked for an educational institute, BCIT. So I've had the gamut of administration, a little bit of government, a little bit of hospitality and service, and now senior living industry. So it's been an interesting experience learning all the gamut of the different aspects.
And Carol, what can you tell us about yourself?
Well, I've been in the seniors industry for over 20 years now. I'm the founding partner and CEO of Insight Housing, Hospitality and Health Services. We're a provider of long-term care, assisted living, and independent living in both British Columbia and Alberta.
And why are you so passionate about this industry?
It's hard not to love what we do. Working with seniors, they're a vulnerable population. They're very appreciative of anything that we can do for them. And it's just a real feel-good environment to be in.
It's wonderful. It's great to have you here. And Tony, what can you tell us about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I've been in a senior management roles in this segment for about 10 years now. And the two companies that I've worked for in this segment have provided all aspects of seniors housing and care. Everything from independent living all the way to more complex care. And for me, to preempt your question about why I'm in this industry
and why you're so passionate,
and so passionate about it is, it's like Carol. It's great to be of service to families and seniors as they go through their time, as they age in place. But more importantly for me, a couple of years ago, my mother started to need those services, and so I became a consumer of the of seniors care in this province, and got to experience it from a customer standpoint. So now I have a better understanding of what our general public and families go through when they try to navigate through the system.
Excellent. So I'm really glad that you're on the panel today as well, because you'll be able to share, to add a very personal touch to our conversation. So back to you, Marlene. Can you just give us a little bit about the history behind the BC Seniors Living Association, who they are and what they do?
Yeah, well, we were an association. We were started in 2002, so we're a very young association. We're just 13 years old, and we represent the owners and the operators of independent living and assisted living in the province of British Columbia. So we have 161 members that house over 16,000 seniors around the province. And we also represent our associate members, who are companies that provide services to allow the independent and assisted living buildings to run, like anything from carpet to food to recreational services to things like that. So we are an association who we're basically private pay with a small component of funded in our membership. However, so we basically provide services to seniors that are able and make the choice to move into our communities, to live better, to be healthier, to be happier, and don't stay at home until they absolutely have to go into long-term care.
And what an appropriate time to talk about this, especially at the holiday season when families are all traditionally together. And if you are faced with any of these situations in your home as a baby boomer, maybe you're thinking of the future for yourself, or maybe you're in the position of having to make some family decisions about an aging parent. You must notice a bit of a demand on your society at this time of year as well.
Well, it is interesting that you say that, because December, January, and usually April are the biggest times of the year where our association starts to get phone calls from families because they've just spent time with their loved ones, with their mother, their father, or maybe even aunts or uncles, and they've realized that while they're happy living in their own residential home, like a home in a community, they've started to realize that maybe they are not getting as much socialization. Maybe they're not having the proper nutrition. Maybe they realize that the mail hasn't been opened. Maybe they're not being as focused as they should. And they start to realize, now that they've spent time with them, that maybe they might be better off in some place where they could have more friends and better meals and more socialization. So we do, in December, January, and April, see a very high inquiry level from families with regards to their loved ones.
It is a busy time of year.
Yeah, and sometimes what happens too is out-of-town family members notice notice more with mom and dad than family members that see them on a day-to-day basis, because of the the lack of interaction with mom or dad. When you've been away for a while and then you come in and you see your mom or dad, and all of a sudden you realize, boy, they sure look different from the last time, or they sound different than the last time.
That's right. And sometimes when you're with them all the time, you don't see it.
Right. And that's right.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. And Carol, what can you tell us about the vision of BC Seniors Living Association?
Well, I think, we're multifaceted in terms of what we do, but we provide services for membership, whether that is the opportunities for networking or education services. We produce policy and procedure manuals, for example. Many of our members are smaller, standalone operators, where we also represent the large multinational or the REITs. And so there's a multitude of services that little guys need that, it's just too expensive for them to do it themselves. The other thing that we have started to do more and more of more recently as our population continues to increase. I mean, we've heard it called the silver tsunami. It really is. So we're working with government to make sure that our members are represented in terms of the regulatory climate that we work within, or the flexibility that needs to be there to serve seniors best, because it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario. Government needs us, to talk to them about what goes on for seniors. They know what goes on for those that are funded through government programs, but they're less aware of what goes on in the private pay environment. And yet we are certainly part of the continuum. So to make sure that they're aware of those options that are out there, and I think is sort of our focus at this point in time.
Well, Carol, you've raised some very good points, and we can clarify that this is not a government organization, BC Seniors Living Association, but you need to work collectively with the government. And I understand that you've just filed a report with the government. What can you tell us about that report and what it entails?
Sure. Really, we put together the report just to ensure that government understands who we are and what services we offer. As Carol has indicated, one of the things that occurs with government when you're not asking for funding is that sometimes you're out of sight, out of mind. So we really wanted to ensure that government was aware that we were there as independent living and assisted living operators, and that we want to be considered a unique and important part of the housing and care options that are available to seniors and their families. We also wanted to ensure that when the government talks about programs at home or delivering programming at home, at a senior's home, that definition of home is expanded to include independent living properties and communities, as well as assisted living communities and properties. Home should be wherever the senior turns the key in the lock, whether it's an individual home that they've owned for 40 years or whether it's one of the properties of one of our community members. And then lastly, we wanted to, in addition to all of that, we also wanted to address some of the issues that came up in the Seniors Advocate report, in particular the issue of the fact that there's a number of individuals, up to 15% of the population, that may be inappropriately housed in long-term care, that may benefit from being in a lesser care environment, but still a safe environment in independent living or assisted living.
Well, this is great. We'll be able to expand on those topics as the show continues today. But why is it so important to have the government and BC Seniors Living Association speaking the same language?
Well, one of the biggest challenges we have in the province is definitions. And so when we talk about independent living, assisted living, long-term care, I think in many cases people are not totally clear on what we're actually talking about. So if you don't mind, maybe we could talk about that.
Absolutely.
To start off, because the rest of what we're doing here today will probably be more meaningful if people understand what we're talking about.
Okay.
Independent living in our world is really an independent apartment, but also an array of services, generally of a hospitality nature. So that may include up to 3 meals a day, weekly housekeeping, laundry, emergency response, and that's generally provided by in-house staff that are in the building 24 hours a day, which obviously contributes to the safety and security element. Recreation and socialization opportunities to a greater or lesser extent. Every building is different. Then we move, sorry?
So independent living would be as close to, it could be as living in your own home, but living in a different building.
Yes, more of a congregate environment where there may be, 50 to 100 seniors all living in their private apartments, and then these buildings have an array of common spaces where seniors, can participate in the services, or they can just enjoy each other's company. As Marlene talked about earlier, two of the things that become very problematic for people living in a single-family dwelling as they age is they miss out on that social activity. Their best friend becomes their television set.
Yes.
There's no interaction there, and that can cause mental decline. The other thing is nutritional status, because if you're living by yourself, gosh, in our middle years, we don't want to cook a dinner when we're by ourselves sometime. Imagine being a senior.
Tea and toast,
Tea
right?
and toast.
Tea
It
and
becomes
toast.
tea and toast. And at that point, for seniors, whose health is failing anyways, a decline in physical health happens when you don't have proper nutritional status. And that can lead to premature admission to higher levels of care, including acute care.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now let's clarify what assisted living is, because I know I'm still a little bit confused on that definition.
So assisted living is take the independent model, which we just described, and add to that personal care. And when I say personal care, I'm talking about assistance with activities of daily living, whether it be dressing, grooming, medications, wayfinding. There's a number of different. It's personal to allow you to remain independent. And those services, whereby the hospitality part is generally everybody in the building is getting the same package. Personal care, everybody's getting an individual service that's geared to their particular healthcare needs. We're not talking about professional nursing care. We're talking about supports. So these services are delivered by people who are generally qualified as residential care aides. The final piece is the complex care, residential care, long-term care, the old nursing home scenario, if you will.
Sure, I've heard all those terms, and I wouldn't know the difference between them.
So in British Columbia, residential care is for clients who cannot direct their own care and who do require 24-hour professional nursing care. So that's registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, licensed psychiatric nurses. The professional component generally means that there is more complexity to the person's healthcare needs. And now we're not talking about acute needs, because that still stays in the acute care hospital. But in residential care, there are acute treatments that take place, but the client is medically stable.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all the definitions. You're listening to Boomer Life on CL 650, and joining us in the studio today from the BC Seniors Living Association, we have Executive Director Marlene Williams, along with Carol Holmes, President of the BC Seniors Living Association, also the CEO of Inside Housing, Hospitality and Health Services, along with Tony Baina, the Vice President from BC Seniors Living Association. Always, if you want more information, please feel free to visit the website, www.bcsla.ca. Coming up next, more on the benefits of the Society and why they are your best advocate. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.